Right, good morning, ladies and gents. I hope you're all doing incredibly well. I don't see many faces, but I just want to get a gauge of whether everyone can hear me okay. If you can, give me a thumbs up or just a yes in the comments box. Morning, Terence. Great to see. Lovely background. Well done. Neswell, I hope everyone's doing well. Thanks, Cedric. Pity about the Springbok result yesterday, but let's pick ourselves up and let's wait for next weekend, shall we? Guys, thanks for your time. Thanks for your energy this morning. Thanks for your consciousness. My name is Rob Arnold from RCA, as you would have seen in the intro. And today we're here to talk about what a great on-course experience is all about, and perhaps a shift, ladies and gents, in where your role in that process has gone. It's an exciting time to be where you are because things are changing. And we're going to be talking about that this morning in quite a bit of detail. But guys, one thing I want to ask you before we get started this morning, and I suppose a choice which you can make as we start this morning. You can be a passenger, and it's not just in this webinar, but I suppose in your career. You can be a passenger or you can be a player, but you can't be both. Okay? I'm going to explain to you what I mean by that. But before I do that, we're going to do something that we normally do when we're in a stadium together and we're feeling pretty proud about who we are. And that, ladies and gents, is the national anthem. So I'm going to ask you to be upstanding this morning. That's right. I'm going to ask you to be upstanding. So please do stand up wherever you might be, however many people you might be sitting with. I'm going to ask you to stand for me. And this version of the anthem was recorded during lockdown by a collection of South African artists that we are going to sing together this morning to get things going. Right, thanks ladies and gents. I think the prize definitely must go to Terence for singing the loudest. I don't know, there might be some people who disagree, but thank you again for joining me this morning. And the reason why, ladies and gents, I love to always start with our national anthem when we start a webinar is that it makes you more conscious, it makes you more aware of who you are, and it makes you more proud of where we are and where we find ourselves in this beautiful country this morning. Yes, we have our challenges, but man, we've got a beautiful place that we live in. Look around you, look at that beautiful golf course outside, and just remember what you have, because you cannot be grateful and pissed off at the same time. Remember that, guys. A lot of what we're going to talk about today is your state of mind, how you approach your work, how you be the best version of yourself. And gratitude is the best place to start every day. So a little challenge that I'm going to lay down for you this morning is what you see on the screen this morning. It's very easy for us to agree on something, right? It's very easy for us to say, yes, that's important, or that makes sense. But there's very few, a very small number of us, ladies and gents, who go from agreement to commitment. And commitment is where we really make change for the better and we move things forward. So my challenge to you this morning is simple, If you agree with something, if something makes sense to you, if you think that's a good idea, don't just let it be a good idea. Make the change in how you do things, right? Every single one of you should have a piece of paper in front of you this morning that you're going to write down an action list that you're going to take out of this webinar, all right? Because that's where you're going to get the most value out of something like this. What am I going to change? How am I going to improve myself? How am I going to move forward? So my challenge to you is this. From today, how much can you take out? How much can you move forward with what you've taken in or heard or agreed with? Okay. Because when we change, guys, when we commit to change, that's when we start to create increased value. So the first thing I want to talk to you guys about this morning is the why. Why is what we're going to talk about today very important for you? And what is it going to do for you as an individual in your career and in terms of your role as a course marshal or maybe something different within your club? So to start explaining this, I'm going to ask you a question. And of course, we've got a lot of people on the webinar this morning. So I want you to try and answer this question for me in your own head. But if you see the item on the screen, I want to ask you this question. What do you see? Okay. Now, some of you are going to say a shoe. Some of you are going to say a piece of clothing. Some of you are going to say Adidas. And others are going to say a brand. Okay. The truth of the matter is the fact that, yes, we do see a shoe, but what we see mostly is we see the 3 stripes. All right? We see the 3 stripes because that is what we associate the identity with when it comes to this shoe. Now, my next question is this. How much would you be willing to pay for that shoe? Now, again, some of you will say 800, 1,000, 1,500, maybe even 2,000 Rand. Right? But then let me ask you this. How much would you be willing to pay for this shoe? Same shoe, same factory, same people who made it. No 3 stripes. What's the difference? And the difference is simple, guys. The difference is that this shoe has no identity. Therefore, we cannot attach any form of value or trust in the shoe because we don't know where it comes from. And my first lesson to you guys is this morning, is that if we don't work on our identity, ladies and gents, if we don't work on that, we cannot create trust. And when you don't have trust, it's very difficult to create value. Many people have asked me over the 12 years that I've been training people, why do some people earn more than others? And the answer is simple. Some people create trust, some people create value through the trust in their own brand, in their personal brand. And one thing I want to convey to all of you this morning is that each and every one of you sitting and listening to this morning are a personal brand. And the name of the brand is the name that sits on your name tag, right? Not Stellenbosch or Bosch and Meer or Ehrenvale or Rand Park. That's not the brand name. The brand name is on the other side. It's your name. And the amount of effort that you put into what you do either increases the value of that brand or it pulls it down. And we're going to talk today, ladies and gents, about how we can increase that value, how we can push it in the right direction, so that through being a great course marshal, you become also a great brand. So to move along those lines of thought, I want to ask you this first question. Why do you come to work every day? Why do you come to work every day? Now, when I ask people this in a live environment, when I ask people in person, if we're sitting in a room together this morning, the studies will show that most of you would say to me that you come to work to earn a salary, which is absolutely fine, right? You have to earn a salary. You have to earn money to put food on the table. You also have to earn money to look after your dependents, your family, right? But should that be the reason why you come to work? And I want to challenge that idea for you this morning, right? Because what we learned after interviewing now well over 100,000 people in different jobs is that the people that do the best in their job do not come to work for a salary. I'm going to share a secret with you this morning, guys. The people who come to work in our industry that do the best come to work to enable golfers to have the best possible time on the golf course. That is why they come to work, right? And if they do that, the salary Everything else, all the good stuff, takes care of itself. And I want us all to understand this a little bit more deeper, because at the end of the day, I want to remind you of something very important. Excuse me. Who pays our salaries? Who pays our salaries? The general manager. It's not the CEO. It's the member. It's the visitor. It's the people who choose to come and play golf at your golf club. Because if all of a sudden they decided that they didn't want to come play golf at your golf club anymore, if every member decided that they didn't want to be a member at your golf course anymore, where would the money come from? So our purpose, ladies and gents, the reason why we come to work every day, the reason why we should come to work every day, is to make absolutely sure that every golfer that plays our golf course has the best possible experience. And with that, I ask you this question. What business are we in? What business are we in? Many of you will say, and many out there would say, that we're in the business of golf. Fair enough. We might be in the business of golf, ladies and gents. But I want to contest that. I believe that we're in the business of people. Okay? We're in the business of people. And we are giving golf as a way of them enjoying themselves. Now, when you are in the business of people, ladies and gents, it's important to understand for different types of people what creates value, what is important to them. And that's what we can understand a little bit more there. But I want to also start by sharing a little story with you. This gentleman over here, as you see on the screen, Mr. Mbele, some of you may have heard of this story before, but a few years ago, this gentleman used to work at one of the Shell garages in South Africa. And what happened was a lady arrived in her car to fill up with petrol. As she arrived and she was filling up with petrol, she looked between her two seats to find her wallet. And her wallet was not there. She had left her wallet at home. She had no money to pay for her petrol. So what did this gentleman do? Every other gentleman in his position would have probably gone to their manager and said, "This lady has no money, what must I do?" But what this gentleman did was he made the problem his own. He owned the problem. And he said to the lady, "Ma'am, I will offer to pay for your petrol. I will sort out this problem." The lady looked at him and she thought he was joking. But he did. He offered to pay for her petrol. And what the lady did next is one of the most special things that's ever happened in our country. Because not only did she go home and fetch the money to pay him, she started something called a crowdfunding initiative to pay for this man's studies. And to date, they have raised over R1 million for this gentleman to study further. Why? Because he decided to be of value first. He decided to be the solving point of the problem, not to make it somebody else's problem. And by that, ladies and gents, he was able to create the value that has seen him grow and go to bigger places. And what it means, and what I'm talking about, is the difference between being in these two mindsets. And this is the first little nugget that I want to share with you this morning. You can either be in what we call a transactional mindset, and I'll explain what that means in a second, or you can be in a transforming mindset, but you cannot be in both. Okay? What is a transactional mindset? I want you to think about the last time that you walked into Home Affairs. I want you to think about the last time you walked into a ShopRite. Okay? Think about the person who was attending to you. Think about the lady or the person who was sitting at the till. Did that person transform your day? Did you walk out there going, "Oh, that was something special"? While you were waiting in the queue at Home Affairs, did someone come up to you and say, "Good morning, sir. Good morning, ma'am. Could I offer you a cappuccino while you wait in the queue?" Of course they didn't. Because they were in a transactional mindset. They saw you as a number, not a name. Now that is the opposite, ladies and gents, of what it means to be in a transformative mindset. Because at your club, in your job, in your role, you are there to transform people. And I want you to write that down. If you have one thing that you take out today, work out, how do you transform people's state of mind? How do you transform them to make them feel better about themselves? And I will show you some of the ideas that I can share with you this morning that will get you along that path. But at the start of it, it is your decision. It is your decision whether you want to be in a transformative mindset or a transactional one. Now, why is it in your interest to be in a transformative mindset? Because if you're in that mindset, ladies and gents, you create value. You get remembered. Okay? You get remembered by people. And when you get remembered by people, you start to move up. You start to make better impact. And that's why I told you about Mr. Mbele today. Because this man over here, he's someone who operates in a transformative mindset. Right? His goal is not to come to work and to fill up people's petrol tanks. That's not his role. He comes to work to make a positive impact on other people. And that is why we're talking about him today. So I want to play this little video with you quickly, because ultimately what we're trying to do on the golf course, what we're trying to do in the golf club, is we're trying to connect with people, right? I said to you earlier, we're in the people business, right? So one of the things we need to try and be able to do and learn how to do is how do we connect with people? Because when we connect with people, we create the trust. When we connect with people, we create the value and show them how good our brand is. So I want to show you this little advert very quickly, and I'm going to give you a quick example of what this means in the context of what we do.
Good afternoon, SL 146 is ready to taxi.
Mr. Smith boarded? Just a minute, I'll just check for you. He's just boarded.
Okay, go, go, go! Mr. Smith, can you look outside? There's a message for you. Yes!
So ladies and gents, one of the things that we realize when we watch a little advert like that, and one of the lessons that I want to share with you this morning, is that in order to connect with people, we have to use information. Okay? Information in what we do is currency, right? Information is currency. In other words, the more information you have about someone, the wealthier that relationship becomes. And I'll give you a quick example. I want you to think about your best friend out there in the world today. I want you to think about the person you believe you know the best. If I had to ask Peter, if I had to ask Reynard, if I had to ask anyone about that person, okay, you could sit until the end of the day telling me stories about that individual. But tell me stories about the person who came and played your golf club for the first time on Sunday. Okay? You've never met them before. You've never seen them before. How much information do you have about them? Very little, don't you? Right? The difference in the relationship is the information you have about each other. Now, the best people in golf operations are the people that can get the information the quickest and use that information the quickest. What did they do in the advert? They found out that that gentleman, his wife, was expecting a little one. What was most important to him in that moment was finding out whether it was a boy or a girl. And what did they do? They used their creativity, they used their teamwork, they used their ability to work together to find a solution for that customer. Okay? Does that customer care about getting from A to B? Yes, of course he does. But what's most important to him? What's most important to him? And that's the real lesson here, guys. What is most important to the people that are in front of you? If you can understand that, you work not in a good level, you work at a great level. So let's unpack that a little bit further. You might in your career have been called a course marshal, right? You might even have the title of course marshal. But now what's the problem with the word marshal? Do you know that if you ask most people out there in the world what they associate with the word marshal, they will tell you a police officer, right? They will tell you a traffic cop. Now what feeling do we get when we see a traffic cop or a police officer? what feeling do we get? We don't go, oh, wow, I cannot wait to go and have a conversation with that police cop. I can't wait to see what ticket the traffic officer has written me. No, we have a negative association with most of those people. So, what do you think a golfer does when they see a course marshal on the course? They don't run towards you and go, how are you doing? Lovely to see you. Am I playing slowly? Let me play faster. Of course, they don't do that in most cases. So, I want today for you to reframe what you see yourself as. You are not a course marshal. And some people are going to get very angry with me for saying this in the golf club. But it's important how you see yourself. You are an on-course experience assistant, right? You are there to make the experience better, not to tell people they're playing slowly. Yes, that might be part of your function sometimes. But if you want to move to the next level of impact, move to the next level of value, if you want to move up in your career, you've got to get your golfers, your members, and your visitors to see you as someone who adds value, not tells them just that they're playing slowly. All right. And to do that, I'm going to show you some ways of how we can achieve that this morning. But remember, it starts with identity. It starts with how you see yourself and how your customers see you. Do they see you as that brand new shoe sitting on the rack that they all want? The Adidas, the Nike? Or do they see you as something which is not as professional looking? That is something we have to bear in mind, gentlemen. So, to do this morning, we're going to start looking at what we call the bigger picture. We're going to start looking at the golf experience as a whole, right? You work in a certain element of the golf experience. But in the 160,000 people that I've worked with over the last 12 years, when it comes to the great people in golf operations, one thing remains very constant, and that is this. The greats of the golf operation don't only understand their role, they understand the bigger picture. Now, what do I mean by that? I want you to look at this vehicle for me. And I want to ask you this question. Let's say that all of a sudden the battery in this car stops working. Right? Let's say that all of a sudden the transmission stops working. Let's say that all of a sudden one of the tires goes flat. What happens to the performance of the entire vehicle? Can it move forward? Or does it remain idle? The answer, gentlemen and ladies, is the fact that it remains idle. If one thing breaks, it affects everything else. The golf experience is exactly the same, right? When one thing doesn't work, or if one thing is worse than the other, it affects the entire experience for the golfer. Okay. It's also important to remember that everything in this car is connected in the same way that everything in our golf experience is connected. So let's look at the golf experience and see what I mean by that. If you look at what people do at your golf club from the customer's point of view, from the golfer, from the member, the guest, there are bookings, there are arrivals, there's retail, there is the cloakroom, right? There is food and beverage, and there is, of course, you, right? You sit at the heart of that experience, right? But my question is, how much do we know and appreciate, not just about what we're doing in the golf operation, but what happens outside of that, right? And what I want to challenge you guys to do from today is, yes, become an expert in your role, but at the same time, start to gain a better understanding of what happens across the experience. When I hear a course marshal being able to tell me what their favorite item is on the halfway house menu, that's someone I listen to, right? When I hear a course marshal who knows who the lady or the gentleman is working behind the counter in the halfway house, that's when I know I'm speaking to a professional, right? Because their knowledge does not only stay within the golf course or the golf operation. They have a bigger picture understanding of what's going on. So guys, I challenge you. If you think you know one thing, there is always another thing to learn. There is always something more to develop in terms of your understanding. So if we start to unpack this a little bit further, what does it mean to have the professional approach? Okay, how do we go from good to great? How do we move the needle so that we are more transformative? We don't just operate in a transactional mindset. And the analogy I'm going to use for you this morning is I want you to think about making a wonderful pot of food. Okay? In order to make that fantastic pot of potjiekos or great dish or whatever the case might be, we have to have the right ingredients to go in there. Okay? The ingredients is everything. So I'm going to start unpacking what those ingredients might be for us today so that we can start moving the needle in the right direction. And I'm going to start off by saying this. It all starts in your head, right? Not with your skill, not with your ability to use your hands or to drive the golf cart or to do anything like that. It starts in your head. And what I mean by that, 80% of our success of what we do in our work is mental and 20% is the physical. Right? So what am I saying? If you can get your head in the right space, if you can get your mental approach to your work in the right place, you are going to be far, far more effective at what you do. Let's unpack this a little bit further and let's understand how do we become better in terms of our mental approach. So, first and foremost, there are two things, and I want you guys, if you have a piece of paper in front of you, I'm going to ask you to do the following. I want you to write on a blank piece of paper two headings for me, as you can see on the screen here. On the left-hand side, what I can control, and on the right-hand side, what I cannot control, or what is out of my control. Now, this is a very, very important step in terms of how we move forward. How do we make sure that we use our time and our energy in the most effective way? So what is the difference between these two? When I talk about what I cannot control, what is out of my control, right? These are the things, guys, that we often spend a lot of time talking about, but that we have no impact or influence over, right? A quick example of that is the weather, right? Did you have any control over what the weather was doing on your way to work this morning? Did you have any say? Could you say to Mother Nature, hey, I want the weather to be sunny this morning. Please make it happen. Here's $50, thanks. Of course you couldn't do that, right? But yet we spend so much time and so much energy talking about the weather. We also spend so much time and so much energy talking about what the government is going to do about COVID, right? So what we are doing here is we are giving our time, we are giving our energy, our precious resources away to something which is completely out of our control. Another one closer to home is the fact that the mood of our members when they arrive at the golf course, it's also something which is completely out of our control. Yet I hear so many people worrying and complaining about the fact that that person was rude to me or this person didn't greet me, etc., right? The mood that they bring into the golf course is not in our control. Now, what I want you guys to start thinking about is stop worrying and stop giving your time and your energy to the things that are outside of your control, and start rather focusing your time and your energy on the things that are within your control. Okay, for example, when you wake up in the morning, what do you do when you wake up, right? How do you prepare yourself mentally to be in the best headspace for the day? Okay, what do you think about when you wake up? Do you think about what you don't have? Do you think about the fact that it's Monday and you have to get through the week? Or do you think about the opportunity of making a positive impact on someone today? Right? How you set yourself up in your own head is how you set yourself up for success for the day going forward. Right? So, the more things that you focus on that you can control, the more that you control your day. So I want to challenge you to do this. The next morning, for the next week, for the next 5 days, when you wake up, I'm going to ask you to do one very simple thing for me. When you wake up, I want you to spend 10 seconds thinking about the thing that you are the most grateful for. I'm going to say that again. I want you to think for 10 seconds about the thing that you are the most grateful for. Now, that could be family. It could be friends. It could be the fact that you have work. It could be the fact that you have all five senses. There's no right or wrong answer. But I want you to think about the thing that you are the most grateful for. Why is this important, ladies and gents? Because when you start focusing on what you're grateful for, you start to rewire your brain to start thinking about what is the opportunity rather than what is the obstacle. I'm going to say that again. When you focus yourself on what you have, you start wiring your brain to think about opportunity rather than what is an obstacle. Okay, any successful golfer, any successful sportsman, any successful professional in their career thinks more often about gratitude than they think about what they don't have. Okay, this exercise costs you 0 rand, 0 cents. Okay, but the benefit to you is invaluable. There is no, I cannot even tell you how valuable this is, right? So the difference here, guys, is simply this. Some of you on this call will take this to heart, and for the next 10, 15, 20, 30 days, you will practice this every single day for 10 seconds when you wake up. And you will see the needle change and move in the right direction. Some of us will do it for the first 5 days. Some of us will do it for the first 2 days. Okay? That is how different human beings work. Okay? But let me ask you this. If you go to gym for 5 hours today, if you lift weights for 5 or 6 hours today, is that going to change your body for the rest of your life? No, of course it's not. But if you go to gym or if you exercise and you run for the next 30 days for 10 minutes every day, is that going to make a difference? Yes, it is. Because you're getting into the habit and into the rhythm of making a change. Okay, so what I'm asking you for is 10 seconds every morning for the next 30 days. Focus on what you're grateful for, think about it, see it, and see how it starts to improve your psychology at work. Because remember this, guys, there are 2 things that we cannot make more of: time and energy. When your time is up, your time is up. When your energy is done for the day, it's done for the day. So my question to you is, where are you putting your time and energy into so that you get the most return? Right? Are you focusing on the people that will move you up in your career, or are you focusing on the stuff which is actually not as important? Now remember, we've got processes we need to follow. We've got things we need to do. We need to make sure that our equipment and all the rest of it is ready, of course. But remember, what actually moves the needle in this world is making an impact on people. All right. So what I'd like to do this morning is I want to actually start learning from one of the tournaments that is going to come up very soon. Some of you who are golfers, and I'm sure a lot of us do enjoy the game in this call this morning, we will know that coming up very, very soon, in fact, in a week and a bit, is the Ryder Cup. Okay, one of the greatest tournaments in the history of the game, and one of the only team events, or one of the few team events that we have in the golfing calendar. Now, for those of you who don't know, the European team, Team Blue, have been the team that have been more successful over the years. And yet, on paper, when it comes to the world rankings, the Americans individually are much stronger as individuals. Now, people have always wondered why. Why, if you've got individuals who are better, do they not work better as a team? I want to play for you 2 short little clips that illustrate something very, very important about team culture. Something which we all need to think about in our different clubs. And this is going to help you to understand how to be better at your individual role as well. So the first video I'm going to play for you very quickly is a little joke that the previous captain, Thomas Bjorn, played on his team members before the start of the 2018 Ryder Cup. Take a listen to this.
Just give me 5 minutes here just to show you something. I want you to just really pay attention to it. It's about everything that we do as Team Europe. So just watch this.
He kind of announced this video that he wanted us to watch. Like on the PowerPoint, you can see in the corner it's like 5 minutes long or something, so it's not that long.
We're expecting an inspirational kind of video and some of the things from the past.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this special Q&A session with the members of the 2018 European Ryder Cup team.
Literally the first thing that comes on was Fran.
Francesco, you've had a tremendous year. You're the Open champion, you're the first major champion from Italy, and now you're back in the Ryder Cup team. How do you feel?
Well, as you can tell yourself, I feel fantastic. It's incredible. I can't wait to play.
Sense of humour in the European team room is something we've always had lots of.
Ian, why does everyone call you the postman?
Well, it's an interesting story, Scott. You know, before all the Ferraris and the Houston Opens, I I used to be a postman. Oh yeah, and I always delivered. Just like at the Ryder Cup. Always delivered. This year, I've got to say, it'd be nice if I got a bit of help from the rest of the team, you know?
To sit there in the team room and have the mickey taken out of you was brilliant.
Thanks, man.
Still, for me, Fran's impression is living with me forever. It was so funny.
I can barely contain myself.
It's a long week and it's memories of a lifetime, win or lose. And I wanted to create something on Monday that made them feel like this is quite a relaxed week.
I've got full confidence in all 12 players. And it's simple. If they don't win their respective points, I will kill them.
That's pretty funny, that. Enjoy tonight, enjoy the week. Let's go and win this.
So, guys, what I love about that, you know, for these players, winning that tournament is everything, right? They know how important it is. But what the leadership of the European team understand is that you cannot be serious every second of the day. Otherwise, you're never going to enjoy work. You're never going to enjoy what you do. You've got to find the balance. Now, as important as it is to have fun, watch the next video, because this sets the tone for what happens when the week really starts.
You know, as you get older, things get taken away from you. And that's a part of life. You learn to treasure the opportunities you've had and reflect on those moments that have defined you. Both good and bad.
This is more than just a game. You live it. You breathe it. And you've worked hard to be here. And it's not just about taking part. It's about winning. Nothing else.
Sevi showed me there are times where you need to reach into the depths of your soul to get you through.
This one is for him.
Sorry about that. Honesty is everything. You only get out what you put in, but you never give up.
So outdo what they can do.
You outdrive them.
You outperform them.
You wear them down with excellence.
You beat them. You give it absolutely everything. So come Sunday night, you can honestly say to yourself, I have no more to give.
Somebody said, all men die, but not all men live. Well, this is the time to feel alive.
And when you stand there on your final rounds, remember,
there is a tomorrow as a Ryder Cup winner.
Or there is a tomorrow where you're not.
Don't leave with any regrets.
So, ladies and gents, that was the video that was played for every single player or member of the European team just before they started their first round in 2018. What was interesting was the difference between those two videos. The one was about humor, the one was about fun. The other one was reminding them why they were actually there. What was their real purpose behind what they were doing? And the big lesson for us in any great team is understanding the balance between having fun and making sure that knowing what we're really there to do, guys. It's not a coincidence that this team is better than the Americans, has been better over the years that have passed. because they get the very best out of each player. They get the very best out of each individual because they want to be there. They're fully invested, not just for one, but for everyone who's on the team. They work for each other. They don't just work for themselves, right? And part of the enjoyment of working with people every day is getting to know those people, enjoying their company, right? Learning about different types of personalities. So a couple of lessons that I want to share with you out of the learnings from the European Ryder Cup team, this very successful team, is a couple of things that I want to share with you now. And the first lesson, I'd like you to think about these, write them down, think about how you can use them in your position and role. First lesson is know why golf ops exists. In other words, always lead with your purpose. As I said earlier, you've only got so much time and so much energy to spend in the day. What is the purpose of golf operations? Right? What is the purpose of your role on the golf course? Okay? When I worked briefly as in the position myself overseas, what I learned very, very importantly is that yes, I had some transactional roles to do. I had some things that I needed to make sure that I ticked those boxes. But what was most impactful was how much time I could spend with the golfers on the golf course. Not influencing how quickly they played, but actually focusing on making sure that they could see that I was there to support them. They could see that if they needed anything, I wasn't far away. I was present. I was conscious of what was going on. Okay, I knew where the possible bottlenecks were in the golf course, so that I was ahead of the game rather than playing reactive to what things might happen. Okay, so again, know why you exist in that role. Know what the real purpose of golf operations is. And I want to suggest to all of you that the real purpose of what you do is to make it possible for the golfers to play the best round that they can. And whatever you do to make that happen, make that happen. Remember, the more at ease a golfer feels, the less stressed a golfer feels, the chances are the better that they're going to play. Okay, so eliminate the stress out of the environment for them. Make sure if a golfer has forgotten something, if they don't have that thing and they're starting to stress about it, we must be able to find that solution as quickly as possible. I want to share a quick story with you. Recently at one of the golf courses in the Western Cape, we were on a golf cart and we were about on the 14th hole of the course, and the golf cart itself ran out of power. Okay? Ran out of power. So, unfortunately, what happened in this case was that there was no course marshal, there was no individual anywhere near for ages to actually note that this had happened. So what happened to us? We had to sit and wait and wait and wait until eventually someone was around to assist us. Okay? That influenced our round. People started getting frustrated, and unfortunately, it diminished the experience. Okay, because there wasn't a system in place to make sure that that problem could be sorted out as quickly as possible. So know why you exist, guys, and always focus on your purpose. Give priority to your purpose as to why you're there. The second lesson is build a template. What the Europeans have done so well over the years is that they've got a checklist, a system, a template, even when it comes to choosing the captain for the year. Right? They've got a system which they follow, and they don't waver off that system. What I want to encourage every one of you to do is build a template, build a checklist. Now, for your benefit, I'm going to share a template. I'm sharing an example of this with you at the end of the session today, which I will send to the clubs and that you can print out and you can keep for you to help you to make sure that you cover all of your bases. You make sure that you're doing everything that you possibly can do to be of the most value. But ultimately, guys, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to build the consistency, right? So we build the right habits. We work smart. We don't just work hard all the time, all right? But if we don't have that checklist, it's very difficult for us to keep that consistency and make sure we're doing what's most important. The third lesson is this. When it comes to a team, when it comes to us in golf operations, when it comes to the on-course experience, between the starters, the marshals, and anyone else, it's about creating common understanding. All right? And when I say common understanding, I mean having a collective understanding of what is going on. All right? Every single club should be having a morning meeting of some kind, even if it's a few minutes. Okay? But everyone should be on the same page as to what is going on that day and what does success look like in that day, whether it's a specific type of tournament, whether it's certain people playing in the field that day, or anything that's different or new for that day, making sure that everyone is on the same page. Okay? The worst thing that you can do is get out onto the course or start your job and you don't have the information that you need to be the best version of yourself. And very often, guys, that is what happens. Okay? So be prepared in terms of the information you need, but make sure, and remember the old saying, we are only as strong as the weakest link in our team. Okay? So across the golf operation, across the team at large, even if you've got more than one course marshal perhaps in your team, starters, marshals, etc., make sure that everyone is on exactly the same page. All right? See the problem before it arises. Don't just react to the problem. Okay? In my humble opinion, slow play is the result of us not being properly prepared. Okay? You should never get to the point where there's slow play. If you are conscious enough about the role, if you're making sure that people are starting on the right time, if you're making sure that people are keeping moving effectively, then slow play should be a very, very minority occurrence. Lesson number 4, and this is very, very important when it comes to our team culture, but also your ability to grow and develop as a professional in your space, and that is to listen first and then respond. Okay, this is part of our culture, or it should be part of our culture, is listen first and then respond. What do I mean by that? It's about first getting the information that you need, getting an understanding, and then making a decision off the back of that information. All right? And that can be relevant to members, to visitors, as well as to fellow colleagues. And my challenge to you is this: how much are we learning every single day? Okay? Because the more that you're growing, the more that you're learning, the more you're growing, and the more you are in a transformative state. Okay? The problem with the people that work at Home Affairs, the problem with the people that sit behind the till at Checkers, is that they're not learning new stuff every day. So what happens to those people? If they're not learning new stuff, they're becoming complacent. And when you become complacent, you start to make stupid mistakes. All right, I want you to take yourself back to the very first day you started being a course marshal. Take yourself back to the very first day that you started in your particular role. All right? Did you walk around thinking, oh, this is boring, I know how to do this? Of course you didn't. You were learning, you were picking up things, you were trying to understand how to do it better because it was new, it was fresh. But as you get longer and longer into the job, we get more and more onto what we call autopilot. And the more we're on autopilot, the less we think about what we do. And the less we think about what we do, the more unconscious we become about our role. Okay, so listening first is about being conscious, guys. It's about being aware of what's going on. Okay, there are so many things that you can learn and take into account when you are in the process of your job that you need to be aware of in order to be ahead of the game. And then the fifth lesson from the culture of the European team is that disagreement in the team is actually okay. It is okay to disagree with someone, but when you disagree, it's about finding the best way forward for the team as a collective, and it's about moving forward, not living in the disagreement. All right? Don't disagree with someone just because you don't like them as a person. All right? Find the best way forward as a team. Disagree for the sake of finding the best solution to move forward, if that makes sense. You can disagree with someone. All right? It's in your right to disagree, but then have a better solution or have a way forward that's going to help the team be the best version of themselves. All right. There is no movement without friction. Okay? There is no movement without friction. In other words, we cannot move forward unless there is some thoughtful disagreement happening so that we can actually make the best decisions as a team. Okay. What I'd like to discuss with you guys as the next step, right, is the importance of understanding who is in front of us when it comes to our golfers, our guests, our members, etc. Now, I want you to think about it like this very briefly, if you would. Have you ever tried to put on someone's glasses, someone's reading glasses that aren't yours? Have you ever tried to put them on? How clearly can you see through those glasses? You can't see clearly, right? You see blurry, you see a fuzzy vision of what is reality. Okay? In the same way, ladies and gents, the lens through which our members look at us and our visitors look at us are very, very different. Okay? One size does not fit all. And this is one of the most important things I can share with you this morning, guys, that is going to move your needle in the right direction, is that I want you to get out of the notion that one approach to every single golfer is going to work the same. All right? That one approach to every situation is going to work the same. And to illustrate this point, I'm going to ask you this morning, guys, to find me a blank piece of paper in front of you. Okay? So find me a blank piece of paper that you haven't written on, and I'm going to ask you to hold up that piece of paper in front of you. Okay, so quickly, guys, I'll give you a minute. Just find a piece of paper, a blank piece of paper, and hold it up in front of the screen, please.
That's not what's up? Good tip.
Okay, ladies and gents, what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to close your eyes, right? Close your eyes, please. Hold that piece of paper up. I'm going to ask you to do a few things to that piece of paper. And when you're doing that, keep your eyes closed. I will tell you when to open them up. If you're in a big group this morning, if you're a couple of you watching the same screen, okay, focus on your piece of paper and we're going to see what happens. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to please fold the piece of paper in half. So take the piece of paper and fold it in half. Okay, when you've done that, I'm going to ask you to do the following, and that is tear off the lower left-hand side of the piece of paper. So please tear off the lower left-hand side of the piece of paper. Right, once you've done that, next I'm going to ask you to fold that piece of paper in half once more. Okay, once you've folded it in half again, the next thing I'm going to ask you to do is please tear off the upper right-hand side of the piece of paper. Please tear off the upper right-hand side of the piece of paper. Okay, once you've done that, fold it in half once more. Fold it in half once more. And then the very last thing is to please tear off the lower right-hand side. So please tear off the lower right-hand side of the piece of paper. Okay, once you've done that, I'm going to ask you to unfold your piece of paper completely. So unfold it completely. Keep it up in front of you. Okay. And I'm going to ask you to have a look at yours and compare to anyone else's you can see around you. And if your camera is on, I'm going to ask you to hold it up to the screen as well, please. Now, what you're going to notice, guys, if you can enable your screen, guys, it'd be great to see everyone's. But we've done this exercise many, 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 many times. And I can tell you without fail, every single time, everybody, almost every single person has got a different version of what I've asked you to do. So if I look at the screens now, I can see every single person has got a different version of the same exercise. Right? Every single person's got a different version of the same exercise. Now, my question to you is, did we not all get the same instruction? Why is it different? And the answer to that, guys, is that we all listen, we all interpret in our own way. Okay, and in the same way, whether it's a different member, whether it's a different visitor, or anyone in between, we all hear the same thing in a different way. So what we need to learn and need to understand when it comes to people is how do we engage with them so that they are actually conscious of what we're saying, that it actually goes into what they're saying. You know, a lot of members often complain. They say, I didn't know that this was happening, or I didn't know that this was happening on this day, or whatever the case is. And it's not because they didn't get the information, but it's because they didn't listen. It didn't go through into their head and they didn't understand it. So it's very, very important for us to understand the difference between a member and a visitor. And I'm going to give you some basic understanding this morning of how these differ so that we can start to change the way we engage with them depending on what we're doing. Now, when it comes to the space that we work in, all right? Fundamentally, they're very, very different for a number of reasons, okay? Let's start with the member and start to understand them a bit more. The member is obviously someone who is familiar, right? The member is someone who has an understanding of what happens at the club. It is, to some of them, a second home, right? They've got understanding of how things work and how the processes function. What members often want is convenience and seamlessness. They want things just to happen in an easy way, right? When you get to the first tee and a member stands up and is about to hit his first tee shot for the 3,000th time on the first tee, they don't need to know how to play the hole, right? That is information that is already available, understanding of them. What they want is convenience and seamlessness. They want their tee off time, the one that they normally have. They want it to be the way that it always is, right? That's different from a visitor. Members want to be the most important person in the club. They feel like it's their club, guys. They feel like it's their space. And they want to feel ownership of that. So the way we engage with them must make them feel like they are the most important person in the club at that given time. Members want to know want you to know what their preferences are. They expect you to know what makes them different from the other member. All right? And that's becoming more and more of an expectation. They expect you to know the details, not just the obvious things. All right? So remember that is a function of listening. It's how effectively we gain information that makes us good at what we do. When it comes to visitors are unfamiliar, right? Visitors don't have the degree of knowledge, and this is often a mistake that I see when we send in our mystery shoppers to golf clubs. What we notice is that the team take a member approach to a visitor. And what do I mean by that? We start making assumptions that the visitor knows what the member knows. And that's not the case. So gentlemen, if you see someone who's unfamiliar in terms of who they are and you don't recognize them, never assume that they know something which is obvious to you. All right? Part of great service is always asking the question. Good morning, good afternoon. Sir, ma'am, name if you know it. Is there any way that I can assist you? Is there any way I can make your experience any better? Right? Always ask the question. Never assume that they're just okay or they just know what's going on. Okay? Visitors need to know and want to know what comes next. Okay? Think about it in your own case. When you walk into a new place for the very first time, maybe you walk into a new house. Do you know where the bathrooms and the kitchen and the bedrooms are? You don't. Someone needs to tell you, right? If I walk into a new golf club for the first time, I don't know where the shop is. I don't know where the cloakrooms are. I don't know where the halfway or the 19th hole is. I don't even know where the first tee is. Okay? And the same thing on the golf course. There is less understanding, guys, of what goes on. So part of our role for visitors is to be a shepherd. It's to always guide and be available to help people know what is the next step. Okay? Visitors also want to feel like they should be there. Very often visitors will tell you, I felt like if I'm not a member, like I wasn't supposed to be there. Right? And part of us getting over that feeling from a visitor is making sure that in whatever they're doing, that they feel welcome. Right? They don't feel like, oh, because you're not a member, you can't have this or you can't do that. We want visitors to want to be members, ladies and gents. That is one of the most important feelings you can give a visitor, is when they drive home in their car, they think, geez, my club doesn't give me that kind of service, or I would actually like to think about becoming a member there. And the reason why they'd feel that is because of the things that you did, not the walls, not the greens, not the grass. That helps, but the real connection comes from you. Visitors, as opposed to members, want you to learn about them as quickly as possible. And here is where we again move from good to great. And one of the challenges I want to lay down for you is how quickly can you learn about someone that you know nothing about. So when you meet someone for the first time, when you see them on the golf course, when you see them wherever you might see them in the club, how quickly can you formulate an understanding of who that person is? Right? This is something that I've had to learn over my whole career, working with people. Okay? And it's one of the reasons why I don't like having to do webinars where I can't see people's faces, because there's no data to work off. When you're in front of the people, when you're at and with them on the golf course, you can see many things. You can see their facial expression. You can see how they walk. You can see what watch they're wearing. You can see what shoes they're wearing. You can see what clubs they're playing with. Is this person playing with a blade, a muscle back, cavity back, oversized? What shafts is he using, right? What golf ball does he prefer to play with, or she to play with? Does he use wooden tees? Does he use plastic ones? The answers go on and on and on. Does he use a rangefinder? Okay, is he meticulous? Is he conscientious about what he does? Or is he just there to have a good time and relax, and he doesn't really care too much about anything else? Everyone is different in some shape or form, and that is the beauty and the curse of what we do, guys, is being interested and conscious about people. So a couple of other ways that we can improve our brand and improve how good we are at our role, not just understanding the difference between members and visitors, but making sure that our presentation, our cover, is as good as it possibly can be. And I want to use the quick example here. I want you to imagine that just before you walked into the store and saw that pair of shoes, I took a nice big smear of mud, and as you can see on the screen, I just put mud all over that brand new shoe. Okay, now instead of it looking nice and clean and new, what you see in front of you is something which on face value all of a sudden looks significantly less impressive. Are you going to go and spend 2,000 Rand on a shoe that's got a whole bunch of mud and stuff around it? Are you going to go, yeah, please can I part with my money for something that looks like it's been worn by someone else? Of course your answer is going to be no, guys, because you're already forming impressions that are saying, I wonder who really made that shoe. I wonder if it is really worth that. And guys, this is exactly what members and visitors start to do when our cover, right, when our presentation is not what it should be. They start to ask questions. They start to wonder, is this guy really worth his salt? Okay, so the point is simple. In service, we judge the book by the cover. Simple as that, guys. And it's not just, we don't just judge the book by the cover at 8 a.m. in the morning or 7 a.m. when the first tee off time is, or whenever that might be. We judge the cover throughout the day. It's much like a cloakroom. It's easy for a locker room to look great before the first tee off time. How easy it is to keep that cloakroom at the same level come 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That's when I want to walk into the locker room and see what it looks like. Okay? Remember that you are a function of consistency. It's not just whenever you feel like it during the day. The next thing, and this is where you can elevate yourself significantly from the average. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. Okay? Whenever I'm ever on a golf course looking after people, I make sure that I have what I need and then some to make sure that whatever the need might be, I am prepared. Okay? Now that's not just the basics. Okay? It's the stuff that any golfer might even be interested in, and most often might not be interested in, but I'm still ready. I'm still prepared. Guys, the reason why the box, except for maybe Saturday or Sunday rather, have been so much better than they have in the past is because our coaching team have brought a whole different level of preparedness to that team. They have a game plan. They've got structure. They understand what they're doing on the field. And in the same way, guys, for you, okay, a walkie-talkie that runs out of battery halfway through the day is nobody else's fault but ours. Okay? Golf carts that run out of battery, inexcusable. Okay? But at the same time, we're going into summer, guys. If a guest is on the course and they've forgotten their sunblock or they haven't got any, and you can see that the guy's getting a little bit burnt, you can be one step ahead, right? Of course, you'd have your sanitizer and all that stuff to make sure that we're within COVID protocols, but know what the guest wants, know what the golfer wants before they know they want it, is my point. I'll say that again, it's that important. Know what the golfer wants before he or she knows that they want it. That's when people leave the golf course and they go, man, that person's on a different level. Okay, so if you're going to go out of today's webinar and think about one thing, think about all the possible needs that your golfer ever has, whether it's member or visitor, in your space, and make sure that you've got a solution before the fact to that problem. And I promise you this, guys, you will work on a different level. Okay. For example, another quick example for you. You don't work in food and beverage, but what is stopping you knowing what the best items are to recommend on the course for Halfway House? What's stopping you doing that? Nothing. What's the benefit? Exponential. Okay. Start to connect the dots of the experience, and you start to work on a different level. Some of you might be using the tag marshal system or some kind of a tracking system. Make sure that you can see what's going on. If you can access that data, that's information that you can use to be better at what you're doing, right? Make sure that you've got the bits and pieces that help you to look after the golf course at the same time while you're on the course. Okay, if I drive past the green and I see a whole bunch of unrepaired pitch marks, and you've got the time, be the change. Be the change, guys. Don't just let it wait for someone else to do it. Next thing when it comes to your brand, guys, something which I always love to remember when Tiger was in his prime was, did you ever notice how he walked? Did you ever notice how he was on the golf course? Now, there's an interesting statistic that at the prime of Tiger's career, any other professional golfer would shoot, and I can't remember the exact number, but it was almost 2 or 3 shots worse on average than when they would shoot when they weren't playing with him. In other words, he had such an impact on people because of how he carried himself, because of his presence, that it actually had an impact on the people that were around him. They were almost intimidated by him. Now, certainly what we don't want to do is intimidate people, but what we can learn from Tiger is the fact that he and us can create an energy by how we conduct ourselves, how we are and how we present ourselves and how we carry ourselves when we're around people. Now, when I see people slouching on a golf cart, driving around, okay, when I see people sort of half waving at guests, right, that is the opposite of what I'm talking about here. Okay, when you're anywhere near golfers and you come past them, driving past them 100 meters away and waving at them is not making an impact. Guys, making an impact is getting within a certain distance, a respectable distance, getting out of the golf cart, and actually greeting them as if you were greeting the most important person in the world. That's what making an impact is all about. And that's what people talk about. So it's not just about how we talk and how we listen. It's about the energy that we give out from how we walk, how we stand, and how we conduct ourselves that actually has an impact on people. You can make an impact on someone up to 150 meters away if you're doing it in the right way. Those are what the studies show. But what I would prefer to do is I wanted to be as close to that person as I could so that I could understand what's going on. Do I need to assist in any way? Can I offer any value-added service if possible? And by doing that, guys, we create the memory. And when you create the memory, those are the people who move up. Those are the people who excel. Those are the people who leave the average behind. What you also want to be doing as an individual is developing the ability to collect the dots so that you can connect the dots. Okay? Now this is where I think any individual listening on this call this morning, regardless of what your position is where you can move to the next sort of rung or level of how you operate, both individually and then ultimately as a team together. So what am I talking about here? How do we collect the dots? Some basic things that you can learn, and I want to list these for you so that you can go away today and you can start making notes of what actually you still need to know to move the needle in the right direction. So let's work through a couple of them quickly. How many people do you know in your golf club that don't work in your specific department? Could you list me names of all the people that work in other departments? Admin, finance, food and beverage. Are you able to tell me exactly who those people are? And more so than just their names, are you able to tell me something about that person that makes that person unique? Right? The best operations teams in the world don't just live in their department, they live as a club, they live as a team. So my challenge to you is this: if you don't know those people, start learning who they are. Start understanding them. Because it gives you a better appreciation for what happens in that club. It moves the needle in the How many of you have a favorite in halfway? How many of you have something which you actually could say to a golfer, especially a visitor? We know, fair enough, members would probably have a favorite. But if a visitor were to ask you on the golf course, what's good at halfway? What are you going to say? Yeah, everything's good, eh? When someone says, yeah, everything's good, then you know they know nothing. Okay, so have that favorite. What beers are on tap on the 19th hole? What would you recommend? What's really good? What's new? Okay, if you were to be able to say to a member, we've just listed this new beer on tap, imagine what the difference is in how they perceive you. That's value right there. What's the current green speed at your course right now? Okay, some of you might be holotining right now, but what's the current green speed right now? Okay, if you were to go and play, could you tell me what that is?
That's low. 22.
What's the
22?
guys? Just mute yourself there. Shaw, can you just mute the guys there, please? Guys, what's the prevailing wind? What's the prevailing wind within your club? Right? If a visitor's playing the golf course, they want to know what's going to happen with the wind today. What's coming? Are you able to check the weather forecast and see whether the wind's going to get stronger or weaker? Know that information so that you can impart that on the players. That will help them. Okay? What are the current pin positions, and perhaps what will they be later on when they do change? Do you know what's coming, what's happening? Who can you speak to find that out? Right, guys, be a hunter of information. The more information you hunt, the more in the know, the more powerful you'll be. How familiar are you with the new golf rules from RNA? Okay, not so recently anymore, but they have changed. Okay, are you familiar with what those are and how they've changed, so that if a golfer were to ask you on the course, you knew exactly what to say to them? All right, very, very important. One of the things that I used to do is, especially with my members, all right, what I would do is, we now can check what the handicap system is, or what handicaps are and what scores are for members that are playing at any given time. So if I knew a certain member was playing on the day, I would go and check and see what are their most recent scores. Have they played well? Are they playing poorly? Okay. If that member knows that I know what they've been scoring, that's on a different level, guys. Okay, that's very, very easy to see these days. So go look at handicaps.co.za. See how your members are playing. See what you can learn about them. Do you know what the different green fees are at your club for different visitors, different members, etc., or different segments? Again, something that you can provide information on to golfers if you are engaging with them in any part in the experience. Maybe they want to book another round. Maybe the visitors liked it. They want to recommend it to friends. What are the different grass types on your course? Okay, do you have a different strain of bent? What do the fairways use? What's on? Get granular, get specific about what agronomy looks like on your golf course. Okay, that's a big part of your job. And if you don't know the information, I can promise you that your superintendent will be able to share that with you. Okay, there's so much to learn when it comes to that. Also learn things like the operating times of your range so that you can provide information to visitors. If they ask you on that, when do they operate? When can they use it? All the different information around that. Rates of the car tire, okay? Information that you can gain on that so that you can provide that and be the person who answers it. Remember the Shell person I spoke to you about, Mr. Mbele? He was the person who knew this information. He didn't have to go to anyone to find out this important stuff to be able to share. Find out what the contact details of your teaching pro is, okay? So that you can recommend it to people. You don't have to go and find out from someone else. Same thing with the operating times for the bar and the restaurant. Okay, get that cross competency of knowledge so that you can be able to provide that to people. Also, understand the history of your golf club, guys. The course designers and the changes over the years. For those of you who worked at older clubs, there's been a number of alterations that have happened to the golf club over time. Often, the course designer and the person who did the alterations might be two different people. Okay, you often are going to get people coming, visitors who are curious on this information. Okay, become a wealth of knowledge on the course. And as I said before, things like mitigating or making sure that you avoid a disaster happening is know where the bottlenecks are on your golf course, right? I'm sure you guys have a feeling for this already, but make sure that you are proactive to avoiding congestion in those areas. And then one of the last things is things like upcoming events and things that are going to be happening at your club. Make sure that you're in the know of those things so that you can also mentally prepare yourself for what are the days when you're going to need to be ready on your game, and when are the days when you can maybe step back a little bit because it's quieter or there's not too much happening on that day. But make sure that you are understanding of what's coming and how you prepare yourself mentally in the best possible way. One of the most important things that we need to know how to be better at, guys, is how do we deal with challenges? Okay? There are always going to be obstacles that come our way. There are always going to be difficulties that we are faced with. In no golf club in the world does everything ever happen perfectly without issue, without challenge. So what I want to share with you this morning as an example of how we overcome difficult times is a little story about someone you may have heard of before, and his name is Michael Jordan. Any of you heard of Michael Jordan before? Somewhat famous basketball player. So I had a recent chat with a very famous South African general manager who has now worked in the States, worked all over America. Really successful guy called Mike Leames. And he shared a story really recently about Michael Jordan, who came to play or wanted to come play at one of the courses that he was general manager at, and what they did to sort out a problem which they were faced with. So take a listen to this.
Great example. Because again, I think you learn from examples. So everybody's heard of Michael Jordan, the greatest greatest probably athlete of all time, right? So he comes to the club, he wants to play. He comes in with a member who's part of his management group. It's right at the time that he was playing for the Washington basketball team. So he comes in, he's inappropriately dressed to play. He's got a pair of cargo shorts on. Well, it's Michael Jordan. I mean, come on, it's Michael Jordan. I mean, give me a break. Can you not just let Michael Jordan go out and play golf? Who cares? It's Michael Jordan. But no, it's not. It's a rule that we had that was in place. So I get a call from the director of golf. He calls me up. He says, listen, I just want you to know this is the situation and this is how I'm going to handle it. And he did an outstanding job. He knew the rule. It didn't matter whether it was Michael Jordan, the president of the United States, or a member who was bringing a guest in. He was going to handle it the same way. And the way he handled it was he went up to Michael, said to Michael, I'm sorry, you can't wear those shorts. They're not legal to play. By the way, here's a pair of shorts. I know I've checked online what your size is. Here's a pair of shorts. Come and choose. If this is not what you like, choose whatever you want in the shop. Here's a key for a locker room in our locker room. Please just change the pants. We'll make this as smooth as possible.
That's amazing. So guys, what is amazing about the way that golf director sorted that problem out, how that individual sorted that issue out, was he didn't get starstruck. He didn't think, geez, because this is a famous guy, I need to change how I am. And often when we're in clubs, certain members make us impact how we react to a situation, right? Certain members are more influential. Certain members are more, they manipulate us sometimes a little bit. And what I want to remind you of is that courage when it comes to what we are doing is one of the most important things. What that golf manager did was, he made sure that all parties, all members of individuals within the management team were aware of what was going on. But at the same time, like Mr. Mbele, what he did was he took it upon himself to find the solution, which was making sure that Michael had the best pair of shorts that he could still play, but that it wasn't different to the rules of the club. There's a reason why we have rules, and we stick to those rules regardless of who the person is who's in front of us. So I want to challenge you guys to have that courage, to move forward with people, and to be strong, but at the same time communicate with the people that need to know. If there's been an issue on the golf course, right, whatever that issue might be, make sure that your manager is aware of it. Make sure that they have an understanding of what's happened. Don't worry about the fact that if you tell them, you might get in trouble. If they don't know and the member then goes to them and that manager doesn't know, it's even worse for you. Okay? Be transparent. Always communicate what's going on with the people that need to know, and you're going to find that you're going to develop a far better working culture than if you keep information to yourself. In the same breath, go and ask people. If you don't know something, go and ask the superintendent, go and ask the golf manager, go and ask whoever it might be, so that you can develop that understanding beyond what you currently know. Like I said earlier, guys, what I'm going to be sharing with you, and if any managers are listening or anyone wants to get in touch, we've got a checklist available. It's a great checklist for you to be able to run through on a daily basis of what you need to be doing, what's going to create value and impact for members and visitors, and making sure that you're ticking the right boxes every day. If you do these things, you're going to be creating impact, you're going to be creating value. And then just to add on to that, we've got a couple of free resources, a couple of videos, a couple of good things that you guys can follow to develop your understanding of what makes impact for visitors and members, making sure that you understand how people work, how to develop your approach so that it becomes more in tune with what people see as value today. So you can follow us on the website, you can send us an email. We've got a free app where you can follow all of this content as well. Whatever it might be, get in touch, and we're happy to help out wherever we can. I just wanted to give some time to any questions that you guys might have. Is there any specific, Cedric, how do we get the checklist? If you just email info@rcaconsult.com, we'll be able to send you a direct copy of that. So it's just info@rcaconsult.com. We've got some time just for some questions, guys. So if there are any questions, any specific situations which you'd like to pose or chat through, let's spend some time being able to talk about that. Kate has a question there. How do you suggest dealing with abusive players when asked to speed up? Very, very, very good question. And this is an answer which has got a number of different steps to it. But I want to start off just by saying that you've always got to know and remember the difference between someone with an expectation, okay, and someone who is contravening a basic human right. Okay, so someone with an expectation, in other words, if they feel like there's, if they're being, in this case, you said being abusive, then that to me is someone who's contravening a basic human right. And no member, no individual anywhere in the world has the right to make someone, to demean someone's human rights. So with that in mind, right, the first thing that we have to always do, Kate, there in that situation is, first of all, take the time for that person to fully, and I express this word fully, express their discontent. In other words, what is the real reason why they are complaining? And this is something that we have to try and understand, because often someone will say to us, yeah, the play is slow, or there weren't any tees on the, whatever. I haven't seen a course marshal for 15 holes, or whatever the case is. But often there's a core reason why that person is unhappy. Okay, there's a deeper reason why that person's unhappy, and it might be because someone in the clubhouse didn't show them significance, or hasn't appreciated the fact of their membership over the last 6 years, or whatever the case is. There's often a more deeper reason. But at the same time, we've got to listen first and let them fully express themselves. And then once we've done that, we can actually start to convey to them what we're going to do to solve the problem. But what I've learned is that the more time you give someone to get stuff off their chest, right, even if it feels a little bit abusive, the more time you give them to get off their chest, the more that itch has been scratched. And when that itch has been scratched, they can actually then approach the situation more logically. Because when someone becomes abusive, guys, it's very often linked to a very high degree of emotion. Okay? When someone is shouting at you and they're being aggro and all the rest of it, the only thing that's at play in that second, in that moment, is emotion. Now think about it like this. When you're at a very high degree of emotion, can you think logically? You're not, right? That person is not going to be able to reason with you, is what I'm saying. You need to get that person back to a state at some point where they can actually just realize that they are being the person in the wrong. Now, what I've learned to do is I let the people speak for even longer than they need to. And what they start doing is that they start self-justifying the fact of why they got aggro in the first place, to the point where they eventually go, you know what, I think I was being a little bit harsh, but you know what I'm saying, hey? You know what I'm saying, hey? And eventually it's like, yes, sir, I understand, but this is what I'm going to do to sort out your problem. The biggest mistake we make is we try and jump in too quickly. I know that's a very short answer, Kate, to your question. We can go through it in different scenarios, but that's the easiest answer that I can give in terms of a blanket approach to it. Give people the chance to get everything off their chest, take it in. I know that sometimes when they become abusive, it's difficult because you don't want to be subjected to that. But remember, at the end of the day, we've got to do something that wins it makes a win for everyone. So listening with the intent and knowing that it's their deficiency, not yours. Okay. Any other questions, guys?
Rob, can I jump in?
Absolutely.
I just want to remind everybody, please, Matthew is going to post a link in the chat box now. Every single person in front of every single computer screen, please needs to complete this this Google form for us quickly. It's just your name, your surname, your email address, and the club that you're from. If you do not complete this, we do not know that you were on this webinar, and we won't be able to send you your certificates for it. So please, guys, if you can all just complete that form for us.
Yes, guys, just to echo that, please make sure, obviously, that you individually do that. Thanks, Cedric. We've gotten your email. We will certainly make sure that you get a copy of that. Just to reiterate as well, if you would like a copy of the checklist, just that email address, info@rcaconsult.com, info@rcaconsult.com, and we'll email that copy of that checklist to you. And also, guys, if you've got any questions that you'd like to pose on via email, you can use the same email address just to do that, and hopefully we can assist you with any specific challenge that you might be having. Terence asks, what happens when a golfer does not want to play with another golfer when you wish to pair up golfers? That is a difficult one. And again, Terence, I always believe that proper preparation will prevent the poor performance. In some cases, the first step is always, what is the root cause issue of that? Is it because of the nature of the human being that we're pairing it with, or is it the fact that the person just doesn't want to play with someone they don't know? And I think, without knowing the specifics to your question, the best answer to this often is education, is awareness and empathy. A lot of people don't understand the economies of a golf course. And they don't understand that sometimes, if they don't have a 4-ball, they have to be paired with someone that they don't know, because that's the allotted time frame that we have to sell in terms of our rounds. And I think being able to reason with people and have a conversation on an even keel and giving them the time of day to explain things like that to people shows that we respect them, and at the same time, that we'll do the best we can to sort them out. But it's always give and take. It's always a game and give and take. And when someone feels like your intention for them is in their best interest, they tend to try and meet you halfway sometimes. If it's a matter of a specific person, sometimes we've got to do the best we can, I guess, but we can't start shifting around tee sheets and stuff like that. So, again, if you want to just pose a specific question to me on email or anything like that, I can look through what we've helped other clubs with and try and find a more specific answer for you. Cool. Any other questions, guys? Any other questions? Kate asks, how can we get a copy of the recording? Kate, I think what will happen is, Charles, correct me if I'm wrong, but that will be available on YouTube for that specific.
if anybody wants a copy of the recording, they can just drop Matthew email at admin@clubmanagement.co.za, and Matthew will send the YouTube link to this recording.
Great stuff. Okay, guys, as I said, please feel free to pop me an email on that email address if you have any other questions. We're going to play out today with a short little speech that was given by one of the actors you might be familiar with. His name is Matthew McConaughey. And this little element of the speech comes from something that he delivered to a group of people that were graduating in America. And the title of the speech was, "You Are the Author." I want to share a short segment of that speech with you this morning as we part ways. But just to say before I do that, I want to thank each and every one of you individually for your consciousness, for your attention during this time. I hope that it's been of value to you. And I challenge you just once more. Let's move from agreement to commitment. Let's move from transactional to transformational. And let's really see what true impact we can add to the people that we serve every day. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Rob.
I'm going to talk to you about some things I've learned in my journey. Most from experience, some of them I heard in passing, many of them I'm still practicing, but all of them I do believe are true. Life is not easy. It is not. Don't try to make it that way. Life's not fair. It never was. It isn't now, and it won't ever be. Do not fall into the trap, the entitlement trap, of feeling like you're a victim. You are not. Get over it and get on with it. So the question that we got to ask ourselves is, what success is to us? What success is to you? Is it more money? That's fine. I got nothing against money. Maybe it's a healthy family. Maybe it's a happy marriage. Maybe it's to help others, to be famous, to be spiritually sound, to leave the world a little bit better place than you found it. Continue to ask yourself that question. Now, your answer may change over time, and that's fine. But do yourself this favor. Whatever your answer is, don't choose anything that will jeopardize your soul. Prioritize who you are, who you want to be, and don't spend time with anything that antagonizes your character. Be brave, take the hill, but first answer that question, what's my hill? So first, we have to define success for ourselves. And then we have to put in the work to maintain it. Take that daily tally. Tend our garden. Keep the things that are important to us in good shape. Where you are not is as important as where you are. It is just as important where we are not as it is where we are. Look, the first step that leads to our identity in life is usually not, I know who I am, I know who I am. That's not the first step. The first step's usually, I know who I am not. Process of elimination. Defining ourselves by what we are not is the first step that leads us to really knowing who we are. You know that group of friends that you hang out with that they really might not bring out the best in you? You know, they gossip too much, or they're kind of shady. They really aren't going to be there for you in a pinch. Or how about that bar that we keep going to that we always seem to have the worst hangover from? Or that computer screen, right? The computer screen that keeps giving us an excuse not to get out of the house and engage with the world and get some real human interaction. Or how about that food that we keep eating? The stuff that tastes so good going down, it makes us feel like crap the next week. We feel lethargic and we keep putting on weight. Well, those people, those places, those things, stop giving them your time and energy. Just don't go there. I mean, put them down. And when you do this, when you do put them down, when you quit going there, when you quit giving them your time, you inadvertently find yourself spending more time and in more places that are healthy for you, that bring you more joy. Why? Because you just eliminated the who's, the where's, the what's, and the when's that were keeping you from your identity. Like, trust me, too many options, I promise you, too many options will make a tyrant of us all. All right, so get rid of the excess, the wasted time. Decrease your options. If you do this, you will have accidentally, almost innocently, put in front of you what is important to you by process of elimination. Knowing who we are is hard. It's hard. Give yourself a break. Eliminate who you are not first. You're going to find yourself where you need to be. Instead of creating outcomes that take from us, let's create more outcomes that pay us back, fill us up, keep your fire lit, turn you on for the most amount of time in your future. We try our best, we don't always do our best. Architecture is a verb as well. And since we are the architects of our own lives, let's study the habits, the practices, the routines that we have that lead to and feed our success, our joy, our honest pain, our laughter, our earned tears. Let's dissect that and give thanks for those things. And when we do that, guess what happens? We get better at them, and we have more to dissect. Be discerning. Choose it because you want it. Do it because you want to. We're going to make mistakes. You got to own them. Then you got to make amends. And then you got to move on. Guilt and regret kills many a man before their time. So turn the page, get off the ride. You are the author of the book of your life.
Awesome, guys. Just a last request to just fill in that registration form. So everybody that was on here, if you can just fill in that registration form. Matt's also posted a feedback form. If you guys can complete that for us as well, much appreciated. Your feedback is also always very important to us.